Hey guys, Elizabeth here from Plant-Based Bride, and I'm back for another Last Week in Vegan. The first story of the day comes from CNN, and it's an opinion piece titled, "Go Vegan, Save the Planet." I was shocked last week when I woke up and saw this headline. This opinion piece was written by George C. Wang, MD, PhD. He's a geriatrician and integrative medicine physician, as well as an associate professor at both Columbia and Johns Hopkins University. This stat-filled article really drives home the point that what we eat has a huge impact on our planet. He shares facts like emissions from the production of beef and lamb are 250 times higher than those from legumes per gram of protein, and pork and poultry are 40 times higher than legumes. He also draws conclusions like adopting a plant-based diet is one of the most powerful choices an individual can make in mitigating environmental degradation and depletion of Earth's natural resources. He also notes the role that a global shift to a plant-based diet could play in feeding the approximately 800 million hungry people on Earth. Along with all the statistics, he shares the facts. He also talks about how it's not necessarily easy for everyone to go vegan. It requires overcoming our habits and our tastes, learning new ways to cook, planning during travel, and navigating the social aspects of eating and meal sharing. However, when seen through the lens of the fate of Earth's climate and resources, don't these challenges all of a sudden seem minuscule? Yes, George. Yes, they do. He concludes, "It is rare that a single choice of ours can have a broad and incisive impact on the climate crisis. We have a moral imperative to choose and advocate for plant-based diets for the health of our planet and the well-being and survival of generations to come." Go read the full article, I'll link it in the description box, and share it all over social media. Mainstream news networks allowing such a strong vegan message to grace their virtual pages is a huge step forward in our movement, and we need to keep that momentum going. So comment, like, and share that article everywhere you can think of. The next big story this week comes from Berkeley, where the city has banned the sale of fur clothing. Berkeley is the second city in the state of California to ban the sale of fur. The first was West Hollywood in 2013. The Berkeley City Council voted to approve the ordinance, sponsored by Councilmember Chris Worthington and spearheaded by the Berkeley Coalition for Animals. This is an incredible step forward for animal rights in California, and I'm so hoping this will cause a snowball effect of further cities in California, in the United States, and around the world passing bans against the sale of fur. I challenge all of you watching to do a little bit of research and see if there's anything happening in your area, any groups that are fighting to ban the sale of fur, any petitions, anywhere that you can donate your time or your money or your support to help spread this perspective on fur around the world. Animal skin is not fabric, and we need to stop treating it that way. The next story of the day is that Taiwan has outlawed cat and dog consumption. This new law that was proposed by legislator Wang Yumin is an amendment to an already existing Animal Protection Act that was passed in 2001. That act banned the sale of cat and dog meat and organs, but this new amendment enforces stricter penalties for those abusing and consuming cats and dogs. Those found consuming dogs or cats will be fined up to 250,000 won, which is around 36,000 US, and those found selling these animals will face up to 2 years imprisonment and a maximum fine of 200 million won, approximately $2.9 million US. Taiwan took the initiative to ban the consumption of dogs and cats in advance of China's annual Yulin Dog Eating Festival. Taiwan has come a long way recently in regards to their animal rights legislation, and hopefully this will have an influence on mainland China in the future. The next story of the day is that an investigation in Britain has found cat and other fur being sold as faux fur in Britain. Now, you may be familiar with this phenomenon. It's also happened in Canada and other places where cat and dog and other types of fur are being sold as faux fur, are labeled as faux fur. This investigation by Sky News and the Humane Society International discovered a number of British retailers on the high street stocking these faux furs. Fibers expert Phil Greaves said that the use of real fur labeled as faux fur is becoming more and more common. The fur they tested came from a range of animals, including cats and raccoon dogs, among other animals, and is believed to have come from Asia. Fur farming has been illegal in the UK since 2003, but this real fur is entering the production chain all the same. Some of this fur was discovered at chains like House of Fraser and Misguided, both companies that claim to be fur-free. Both companies released statements saying they were unaware of this and are looking into it. I'll leave the source article from Plant-Based News in the description box if you want to read those statements, as well as a statement from Humane Society International's executive director. I find this incredibly disturbing, and I hope that these companies are taking this seriously and that other companies will take this as a warning sign and look into their production chain and be sure that the items they're selling and labeling as faux fur really are fake. Our next story is that Reebok is debuting corn and cotton shoes. Reebok is planning to debut their entirely plant-based shoe this fall in the hopes of creating sustainable shoes that will eventually decompose when the shoes are discarded. Reebok Future Team's Vice President, Bill McInnes, said, "Reebok is trying to clean up the entire life cycle of shoemaking, from what shoes are made of to where they end up. Your typical shoes, which are made with oil-based plastics and animal products, can stay in landfills for hundreds of years. This new shoe will be made with a cotton upper and a corn-based sole." And Reebok says that they plan to use the compost created by these plant-based shoes to help grow materials for future shoes. McInnes said, "We now have the formula to replicate this across a range of sneakers. This is a blueprint for a lot of shoes to come." I am so into this move by Reebok. It really fits with a lot of the news we're hearing recently about more sustainable, eco-friendly, and vegan materials coming out and being used to create stylish and sustainable fashion. And I'm really glad that a huge company like Reebok that has so much international recognition is jumping on the bandwagon and committing to creating more sustainable products for their consumers. Hopefully, all of their products will move in this direction and they will stop using animal products and other products that are destructive to the environment. Our next story is that JoJo has gone vegan. You might not know JoJo, especially if you are much older than me or much younger, but she was super popular when I was growing up. Her big single when she was 13 was Leave, Get Out, and I can still sing it. Leave, get out right now. This is the end of you and me. It's too late. I can't wait for you to be gone, and I wonder about her. Anyway, I think it's awesome that JoJo has gone vegan. I love the stream of celebrities going vegan with their entire audience base being exposed to the vegan message. More and more public figures are going vegan, and it can only be a good thing for our movement. Our next story comes from Forbes, and they claim that dairy-free milk is draining the dairy industry. Michael Pellman-Rowland writes, "The growing popularity of dairy-free milk is slowly draining the American dairy industry." He points to the conflict surrounding the Dairy Pride Act, which I've talked about before on Last Week in Vegan, where congressmen were trying to ban the use of the word milk in dairy-free milk products, claiming that the label milk is misleading if the product isn't an animal secretion. I'll leave a link below to the Last Week in Vegan where I went more in depth on this if you're interested. Rowland thinks that this battle between dairy and dairy-free milks is only going to intensify in the years to come. He says, "It seems consumers are waking up to the realities around dairy and changing their behavior at the grocery store. This trend of plant-based milks booming and the dairy industry crumbling is something that makes most of us vegans pretty happy. We can see what a huge impact this boom in the plant-based milk industry is having on dairy, and hopefully this will only continue and more dairy farmers will close their doors and move on to production of foods that are more sustainable, kinder, and healthier." The last story I want to cover today makes me so happy, and it's all about Canadian high school students imagining a meatless future. So this is the 2017 Lieutenant Climate Change Essay Challenge, and it was posed to seniors in Ontario high schools to imagine how the country could stop climate change by the year 2067. 2 out of the 3 winning essays imagined a meatless future for Canada. The third place winner, Alexander Bichet, described a future where in vitro meat, or meat that originates in a lab and does not involve animal slaughter, has become the most consumed form of protein. He writes, "In vitro meat, while controversial in its beginning stages, became mainstream by the 2030s. It had the support of both animal welfare groups and environmentalists. As a rising population contributed to rising food costs, in vitro meat was seen as a sustainable alternative to factory farming. Second place winner, Yassine Jabbar, describes a Canada where vegetarian burgers have taken over meat burgers. He explains that his vegetarian vision of Canada in 2067 became a reality through government action. He writes, "Thanks to a national awareness campaign and government taxes on the meat industry, we were able to dramatically reduce our emissions of pollutants." All three winners will be awarded scholarships. I love this story. I love hearing about Canadian teenagers realizing what needs to be done to meet our climate change goals. And this makes me think of the new film that's come out, Carnage Swallowing the Past, which is about how the UK went vegan from the perspective of the future. It's an awesome film, and my in-depth review is going up on Saturday, so make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss it. You can also click the bell if you want to make sure you get a notification when I post it. So those are all the stories I'm going to cover in today's video. There are actually 3 bonus stories that I am filming that are going to be posted on my Patreon page for my patrons of $10 a month and up. If Last Week in Vegan videos are one of your favorites on my channel, if you enjoy hearing this news, please consider supporting me over on Patreon and getting those extra stories. You'll also get links to all of the stories I considered covering and ended up leaving out. There are lots of other awesome rewards on my Patreon page, so I'll link it here in the cards as well as in the description box if you want to go check it out and maybe support me. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media so we can be friends, and check out my last video right here. Bye guys.